Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Super Coach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here to talk all things round 7, my team, late changes, draft stars, footy chat, any Q&As. Straight into it. This is actually the second time we're going. Big shout out to Trav, who worked out my sound wasn't on. There was definitely a connection problem there, but we are live, we are going, we are pumped. Friday night footy, St Kilda, Port Adelaide, 7:50, about 45 minutes away. So we are here. Everything seems to be up and firing right now. As always, continue to check us out on all our social media platforms, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and Twitter, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swiz26. Thank you, as always, to our sponsor, Splash Vodka. Please continue to support them and check them out. We do appreciate your efforts with that and their ongoing sponsorship for our podcast. We do appreciate it. All right, so as we get into my team for starters, we'll explore that. So as everything decides to fall down, as it tends to do, nothing better than live media, and then everything decides to go wrong, but we are back in action. So 3 trades. I don't really want to use another boost. That's my 4th boost done already. The big one last week, unfortunately, was because of boosting for Took and Roberts, and that has absolutely backfired horribly on me. Still managed to score really well, and for actually some reason that hasn't updated, but I'll try to get that up. Questions trading Miller, we will get to that in a moment. So that's actually my round 5 score. I don't actually know why my round 6 score hasn't come up, but luckily for me, had Bont the captain, which was 182, and naturally took that VC score. And I'm just trying to fire up exactly why my score didn't come up. So I apologise for that. 2105. So I'm now ranked 3,705. So I dropped about 500 spots. And with all the carnage that actually went wrong with my team, I'm actually really happy with that. So it could have been really bad, but luckily it still managed to come together. And that with some of those premium scores, Took scoring what he did wasn't ideal, but yeah, that's the way it kind of goes. So what I've ended up doing, the 3 trades out, Davey is gone. Unfortunately, has been dropped. He is listed on the extended bench. So that is a bit of a worry for me because there is a possibility that he could be sub this week. And I just don't want that stress of him coming in and not scoring that well. So he's gone. There we go. We've updated mine. Round 6, 2105. Overall rank 3715. So yeah, so Davey is out, and bringing in Mitchell's looked really good for the Hawks, and 79 last week. He is the big cash cow. So he is coming in for Davey. Then the second trade I made, and there would have, and there's the 2 mid-price, with one definitely who is a premium. So Cornelio is coming in, and that is for the expense of Wilmot and and Connor McKenna. He's the other one that's listening. I'm just trying to look through, going, which player did I get out? Yeah, Connor McKenna. So the 2 Brisbane boys. Actually, no, I kept Wilmot, so it must be Connor McKenna, and I know there was him, and McKenna's nearly priced out, and I know there was a third. And Took Miller, of course. So Took Miller with that knee injury straight out of my side. So Miller out, McKenna out, and then Davey. So, and then I've brought in Cornelio, which he's sitting at the midfield at the moment. And I've also brought in Will Day. So sort of the way my team's set up now, it's Dawson, Dacos, Zeeble, Day, and Sheasel. Sheasel, we'll see how he rebounds. But that's the, with a break even of 99, even if he was to go 50 this week, he's only dropping 18 cash. And next week, he would be a trade out option. Definitely going to see a lot of ball with LDU out of that side as well. There's potentially more points around for North Melbourne. In that back line, though, I think the D's are going to have a field day. So if Sheasel's back there, and I think there'll be periods at the time where he will float back there this week, hopefully he could still string together a 70 or something where he can still be a keeper, and that 53 will come out in a couple of weeks. If not, well, he is obviously the option that I'll be trying to get to either Sinclair, Sicily, or Stewart down there. So yeah, Dawson, Dacos, Zeeble, and Day are pretty well locked in for the back line. And then I've got Jones and Wilmot, which will be trying to get a fallen premium for them. In the midfield, Oliver and Bont as the captain options. Laird being potentially out this week. He's still named. They're going to give him to the last minute. Most likely looks out. Johnson's not the best backup, but I do have that done. There, Tom Green I'm holding on to, so we'll take those 4 in isolation as my 4 midfield premiums, with Hopper and Ashcroft as the other 2. Hopefully Hopper can, sort of keep a steady 95 to 100 leading into those buys. Might potentially just become one of those guys that we just hold on to with the way the options are going. So he's there, and Ashcroft's there in my midfield. And then the rucks, English and Marshall. Marshall potentially, depending on how he goes against Teakle and maybe next week, could become Gawn. That could be a sideways trade for us in a couple of weeks' time. So something to consider there. And then my forward line, which is all but pretty well done. So Dunkley, Taranto, Rosie, Goulden, which I'm happy to hold on for the moment. Apart from really Cameron, the forward options aren't that crash hot. So I'm happy to keep him there sort of as an F6. Canelio, who's in the midfield as well at the moment, is another forward option. And there we've got Chandler, Green, Van Rooyen, and now Mitchell all in the forward line. And they're really the guys I'm trying to get cash to bring in those midfielders. So I only really need with one more defender, if we count Sheasel as maybe a sideways. Jones and Wilmot got to get me a defender. Goulden and Canelio go forward. So I've got to just find the way to get one more forward in there. And then realistically, it is 4 midfielders. And Hopper might be 1 keeper. So that'll be 3 in there. So that's sort of how my setup is. The back, the defense, not the defense, the interchange bench. Roberts is an issue. Madden, obviously, they're already a non-scoring player. Constable, hopefully, gets back in. Johnson might be just a really slow bone. Ralston, hopefully, if he is the sub, comes on early again. Chess is a problem, so there's not that much cash gen happening on that bench outside of Mitchell. Just it's fingers crossed that Johnson and Constable can somehow, Constable get back in and get a spike for us, and Johnson, get a nice score at some point over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, so that is the setup for me. The final teams before we get into your questions. We've had a couple changes. Probably the big one, we'll start off with Essendon and Geelong, is Davey out. Davey dropped, but he's been dropped to the extended bench. And somebody from Tamworth is calling me, so we're probably not going to take that phone call. So he is out. You got Snelling, Menzies. If a few people may have Menzies. Merritt's back. So they're playing Tipper. The one I'm disappointed with is Snelling out, most likely the sub, because I've got him in a couple draft leagues there. And I think there was Simpson named. I think I was just talking to Emily and she said Simpson is on the ground, named at half forward. So he's one potentially we'll be looking up as an expensive rookie next week. Tigers versus the Suns. Tigers have rested Prestia, but Juddy Clark's out. So some people did have him in. They've listed Tuke Miller as illness. I don't think that's the case, but could be a theory there that he is maybe have some weird illness, and then within 2 weeks he's back in the side as all these guys have been doing this season. Soldo's also back there, so in case anybody still has wits and that, it's a slightly better matchup for the Tigers than when they've been playing Samson Ryan. It'll be interesting to see how that sort of works out as well, because Ben Miller last week played ruck, so does that mean Ryan's the one giving the chop out, or was Ben Miller giving the chop out? And then for Adelaide, no changes there, but for the Pies, they've dropped Trey Rusco, and I think he played quite well last week, so that's a bit of a surprise. And Scott Pendlebury out injured. That's maybe a big one. I don't think huge people have him, especially more year drafts. He's been flying this year, but that has more relevance than what happens with Dacos. And Dacos has been moved into the midfield on these team sheets, and naturally the Crows have Ben Keys right next to him. So does Dacos play midfield? Does Keys tag him and follow him everywhere? Both likely situations. Does that mean Dacos doesn't score as well? And I know a few people want to put the captaincy on him. So that may be not the best option this week. And that's why I've got Bont into Oliver. I think Chris is leaning towards Marshall tonight because he's against Teakle. And if you've got, I really like Bont or English in that Hawks game. They're going to score really well against them. I know a few people are thinking Neil or Dunkley playing Fremantle, so that's got to probably be an option. It also depends on what loophole options you have, like Madden playing the third game this week, but that's 2:10 at the same time as Brisbane and Freo, so it's a hard loop. If you've got Roberts, again, it's an early game, hard to loop there. Ralston, and he's named in the emergency, so it's really Chesser and Constable are your two, so you just got to make sure. Now, for my situation, if it is Constable, I'm taking Johnson's score. If it's Chesser, I'm taking Wilmot's score. So for me there, I've set it up so Sheasel and Zeeble are both in the back line, but if Wilmot was to score well, I'd actually move Zeeble into the forward line. Mitchell will go back. Mitchell will go to the bench. Chesser comes on as my captain, and then I'll just not play Mitchell, or I might put Fergus Green back there. So I'm looking at that is probably a couple of the loophole options I'm playing around with. All right, we do have quite a few questions coming in, which I really do appreciate. So thank you, and thank you to those people who are trying to answer each other's questions. It's the great thing about this community, people jumping on and talking to each other and definitely doing stuff there. As I'm just playing around with a couple of little settings here as we get in, but of course I can't find what I'm looking for, so we'll just get straight into these questions. All right, Travis. So question: trading Miller to Danger allows me to bring in Cogs. Yep, love it. Danger's absolutely on fire. I talked about him last week, so well done for a couple of the people that messaged me and said I actually jumped on the Danger train, went 144. The problem is at some point you may think he'll get rested. The big thing this year, the difference is he is captain, so he's trying to lead from the front. Break even still of 51. Did have that jump up of 41k, and he's gone up 90k over the last 3 weeks, so would have been awesome to get on 3 weeks ago. But yeah, his form's been super since while they've been winning 119, 118, 144. So you can't ask much more than a 127 average while you're winning games, and the Cats are going to win a lot of games. It's just a question of, do they keep winning later in the year? But I guess we get to the point where if he does get rested, but with this week with the Bombers, Crows, and then the Tigers, Freo, Giants coming up, big chance that Danger playing midfield, especially without Guthrie, could be a really nice pod for people. So we've got, he only went up 0.3%. He's on 3.4% team. So when we talk about pods, that's your perfect pod, especially with these primos not performing. So yeah, I do like it. And it does allow you to bring Canelio in. So that's a great thing. Noah, hey Swiz, do you think Zeeble is still worth it? 111 last week. He has been absolutely flying. Well done to everybody who jumped on the early Zeeble train. Is he still worth it? I really like him. You're like, okay, yes, he's going up 110k, break even of 51. How much ball are North going to see this week against Melbourne? Now, the problem is it a case of, Melbourne is just kicking goals? If it's what happened at Mount Barker, where the Lions kicked like 20 behinds and had all those scoring shots, plenty of kick-ins for Zeeble there. So I think he's going to see a lot of ball in defence this week again. And he should probably go a ton again. Saying that, it'll probably be Hall, McDonald, or Sheasel or somebody like that. But he's been nearly as consistent as ever. Anyone. His worst game was 78 against the Hawks, and naturally they played very well that day. Even the Eagles, it was just the 102 when they won that. But yeah, he's been pretty consistent. 106, 111. I don't think you can ask pretty well any more from JC, and at 467, it's still value. So the guy looks like he's going to be either a top 6 in defence or the forward line, probably more the forward line, but as a guy that you can swing around. If you've got no other, well, it depends who else that you need to bring in, but if you're looking for a defender forward, he is definitely a great one, especially if you already kind of have Will Day. Now, that was his next part. Now, his next part over Day. I still prefer Zeeble. I am bringing in Day, but that's because I had Zeeble. Will Day, break even 15, playing Hawks midfield, break even 15. It's kind of now or never. Does he sustain an average of 100? Possibly not. The Hawks have named their midfield this week Newcombe, Warple, Ward, with Day coming off the interchange bench. Now, that could still change, but does that have me a little bit concerned? I would rather have seen Day named in the guts, but I think he'll be ready to go, fresh. It's a hard midfield to play against in the Doggies, but I still, hopefully he should still be good enough to maybe get an 80 this week. It might not be the best score compared to some of his other weeks, because the Dogs are hard to score against, and I think that could be like a few people might get let down by bringing him in and going, oh my God, Will Day's only scored an 80 this week, but I feel like the Hawks could do a number on him. But in saying that, apart from round one, he's got 98, 139 and 107. So against the Cats, he's still got a 107. So there's definitely a possibility there where if he gets 100 and maintains around that 95-100 average, great value still getting him in at this time. So if I had to choose, as I said, Noah, it'd be Jay-Z. Global, good to see you, buddy. Talked about the trades this week. So, it's see you later, McKenna, only because I don't think he's got any real money to make. If we go through McKenna's stats here, for those who were considering maybe trading him or maybe trading somebody else, where are you here, Connor McKenna? So he's now 302K. He's gone up 135, break even of 62. Now, he could very much get that against Freo and has scored a 92 and 107 against Freo before. So I am concerned a little bit about that. But three of his last four scores are 57, 55, and 57. His 86, 78, and 93 came against Port Adelaide, Melbourne, and Collingwood. And if we look at those games, well, they lost to Port Adelaide. Melbourne nearly got them in the end, after the lights went out and all that drama that night. But he still got a 78. And then, the Pies game, which was 86. So if you look at in Brisbane against the Doggies, North, and the Giants, and I believe that they won all those games, and I'm pretty sure it was fairly comfortable. Let's have a look here. The Lions versus where are we here? The Giants last week, 21 points, but it was pretty well comfortable all day. Naturally, they thrashed North Melbourne. And where are you, Brisbane? Apologies, as my phone doesn't want to work for me. Where are you here, Brisbane? Of course, there they are. Oh, yeah, they lost to the Dogs. But that was a tight match against the Pies. They won that. So that's actually kind of interesting. Got the 86 against the Pies. I was thinking there was a little bit more correlation with them losing versus winning, but what it was the reason again for that Collingwood game. McKenna, 19 touches, 5 tackles. I think he actually maybe because he was playing a little bit more up the ground that week. But the last 2 weeks in particular, 55, 57 against when they've been winning. Brisbane going to beat Fremantle this week. I'm pretty confident on that. So is he going to score as well, playing with the ball not down there as much? Probably. So I think if McKenna probably might go 60, it's like it is his break even. He's not going to lose cash, but is he going to really make any cash for me going forward? Probably not. So of all the options I can trade out, is he going to score better than Wilmot? I think he will. So if you're thinking a little bit more points on field, you might want to prefer to keep Wilmot. But in his case, where are you, Darcy Wilmot? Where are you? Darcy Wilmot, break even of 38. So definitely some cash to go. The last, he got the 39 against the Giants, which was disappointing, but he's had a 50, a 68, a 69, a 68, and 51. So outside that 39 last week, most scores have been above 50. That's still going to make at least 4 or 5K. Anything more than that would be handy. So we're hoping for a 60 from him. But the scope for Wilmot to at least make a little bit more cash is there. So and I think Wilmot's been named on the wing as well. So that's something, one of the reasoning there. I've gone Wilmot over McKenna, but I can definitely see why people would rather trade out McKenna. Supercoach Pro, going early on Sin Cotter. My wife's just done that. I've got no problems with it. I hate Stewart as an option for my structure. I'm not that big of a fan of Stewart, and that's the problem. Forwards playing for Fremantle as well. Definitely, it's just their form. I've been so disappointed in how Fremantle have been playing this year. I actually thought I knew there'd be a little bit of a step back, but definitely the bringing in Jackson and losing your guys so it's Lloyd Meek, Akers, Tucker, Griffin Logue. They're all out the door, and you can argue some of those guys are fringe players, but they were all playing roles for Fremantle. And you've brought a guy in, Jackson, who's going to be a gun player for them going forward, but that's one player kind of replacing 4. So, and then you've had to play some of these younger guys. So you've got Sam Sturt there playing up in the forward line, and he did some nice things last week against the Doggies. But again, look at the stats. It's 7 touches. Yeah, he's kicked the 2 goals, but it's going to be reliant on goals. The week before, he got a 37, didn't kick a goal against the Suns. So against the Lions, unless you think he's going to get a couple of cheapies maybe, or able to do some good job presenting and get on the end of a couple where he might able to put a 50 or 60 together, but the most likely scenario this week, he probably does go goalless and only kicks 1 goal, and you're back to a 30, 40-point score. So, yeah, going forward, it's not a great option. Where you've got Carlton, for example, with Cincotta. Now, the worry about Cincotta is, they do have a lot of options there, and he's probably the next out with their team. If we get up their lineup for this week, the Blue Baggers. So we've got Cincotta starting on the bench. You've got Newman, Doherty, Sard all back, and they've brought in Kemp. So their backline outside, naturally Williams, who's going to be out for the year, is back as probably strong as you can get. They're out, and that's where Cowan being on the emergency, but they've already said Matt Kennedy will be the sub this week, so Cowan won't play. So it's really only Cowan replacing Cincotta. Now, there's a potential where Cowan's looked really good over a couple of weeks, and we've said that we felt like it might be Cowan, Hull, and Cincotta rotating throughout the year. So if Cincotta was to play maybe a bad game or a couple of bad games, he might find his way out of the side. But yeah, last week he did everything he needed to do. 24 touches and 7 marks in your first game of footy. What more can you want from him? It's just his disposal efficiency, and did handball quite a lot. You'd prefer him to kick the ball, but yeah, 67. You've got to be pretty confident of him against West Coast doing enough to keep his spot. So I've got no problems with people doing that. Just expect at some point that he may go out and Cowan comes back in, and that rotation policy continues with the Blues. 102k, if it helps your structure as well, go for it, because I know a few people are looking at doing it so they can bring in your Canelios or your Days. The other options, obviously, are a lot more expensive. So, yeah, for 102k, that is not a bad player. LDU or hold. Finn, this is an awesome question, which we've argued about all day today. I would trade him, but I guess it depends who you've got to trade him to, how much cash you've got there. And it's not the point, like, he should only miss a week, apart from North Melbourne's draw being absolutely horrific coming up, but he has looked terrible after those first 2 rounds. One of the things we did talk about in the pre-season was, is Clarko going to get LDU to be the absolute monster ball dominant player that we know he can be, or is it a case where they kind of share it around more? They have so many midfield options that can run through there that it doesn't actually need to be him dominating every week. So we saw the first 2 weeks where they absolutely dominated in wins, 143 and 155, and it looked fantastic. So, they had the 32 and the 30 touches. Week 3 still had 30 touches and managed to only get 102. So there's the loss coming into play. So there's also the efficiency side of things. He did give away, he actually got a hold onto a lot of free kicks that week too. He got 5 free kicks and still only got the 102. Against the Lions and the Suns, there has been a drop-off, 23 touches and 20. So apart from the fact that, he has been a bit sore and banged up, there has been a little bit more of a divide through that North Melbourne midfield. And they do, as we've said, got a lot of different options. Maybe not the best options, but yeah, when you're running guys like Cunnington, who last week got the 27 touches. So we've talked about LDU. They've got young Will Powell in there. Our man Phillips, who did get injured last week. They've had Liam Shields in the side. So they're trying to play different guys and give them all a taste. And it's a bit like North Melbourne's backline with Hall, Zeeble, Sheasel, McDonald, Darcy Tucker, who's like sort of that wing but defensive winger. Clarko, I think it's more of a case of, well, I'm going to have a look at sort of these guys, who plays my structure best. He's trying to teach them a new structure in the midfield and defence. So yeah, there's opportunities going around, everybody sharing those opportunities, and that was my worry about North Melbourne going forward, that how much reliance is it going to be on 1 or 2 players? Is it, okay, we're going to have a look at you and then have a look at you and see how that works out? So I think it is a situation with a trade, 560 and his break even of 160. And even worse for that, their draw is absolutely awful. So he's missing the D's game, but then he still has St Kilda, Port Adelaide, Sydney, Collingwood coming up the 4 weeks after that. So we've just talked about since they've had their wins, how his form has completely dropped off too. So I wouldn't be backing him in. 560, yeah. Tell me what other options you're looking for there, Finn, and then we can maybe go through them. Global, both Doc and Sard have been both brought back in, and he held his spot. So yeah, that is the good thing from St Kilda. And as I said, the problem with St Kilda comes more with Cowan and maybe even Ollie Hollands if they want to give him a rest at some point, which I'm sure the Blues will. And maybe that week Cowan comes in, St Kilda plays more up the ground on the wing. Hollands then comes back in, and then whichever the best performer out of Cowan or St Kilda, or just a case of which fits their structure better that week. Do they want the more lockdown defender or the rebounding defender? Travis Hashy hopefully gets 100 would be good, so let's reply to another question on there. Yeah, the watch on Laird is huge this week. That's why you must have some sort of emergency plan there. I would have preferred like Mitchell or somebody else. I was thinking about chucking Taranto in that midfield as my backup, and then if he looks like playing, or if the word in the morning looks like Laird's playing, then I was going to move Taranto back into the forward line. But knowing me, I'll be at the pub, and then I'll be off to the footy, and I'll probably forget about it. So let's just keep it as that, and hope, fingers crossed, Johnson actually does something this week. Ultimate Fitness Adventure Camp. What a great name. Rookie dead list. Rookie dead list is on 100%. So whoever shall win the comp should have a yearly Supercoach party if I win. Yes, there's a couple of teams I've seen out there who have managed to dodge some of these players and they still have good rookies on. I know like some people have got Radicalea there in the ruck, which is fantastic. One I'm really regretting not having. I've seen Samson Ryan also in either the rucks or the forward line, so he's still pumping along his score. So there are rookies and there are teams out there that do have rookies going. And if you're in that position, you're looking fantastic. Hopefully people have jumped on JVR. They've got Chandler. They've got Fergus Green still going there. So we've got that. We've talked about bringing in St Kilda, so that'll be the obvious one I'll be looking at next week. And Wardlaw, even though he's going to be a lot more expensive, he is nearly ready to go for North. So will be one that we'll be looking at. And Simpson for Geelong, again, it's more expensive, so we prefer the basement, but we might not have a choice. But if these more expensive rookies come in and they can continue to score, then why not? Would I prefer a 102 or 123 guy who scores 40s, or maybe a 200 guy who can score 70s to 80s? And we've seen that with Sheasel. So sometimes it's good to pay up, and even if it's, say, you've got a Baker or a Jimby and you're only going down to a Wardlaw and you're only making 80 to 100k, well, at least you're getting a player who could become a potential keeper for the end of the year. Bont is VC. Yeah, no, I love Bont. Tyler D, help me decide Tom Stewart or Sam Walsh. I had Tom Stewart in, and at one point then I had Walsh in. I'm going value Day and Cornelia because I'm starting to get myself in trouble without having these guys. If I had to decide, it's Stewart. I really like Walsh, and against West Coast, who knows what he could do there. And that break even of was it 117, so it's still a bit high. I'm thinking that's what it is off the top of my head. But I feel more comfortable having Stewart in my side. Like, Stewart is going to need to get back into everyone's side at some point. Most people have him. Essendon's forward line looks a bit shaky, so it's definitely somebody you'd want to get in. And yeah, so Walsh is 117. So at work, he could go massive. He's done it before. He had that game against the Pies, 193. So he does have it. But most of his other top scores are around that 140 mark. So if Walsh came out and was to score 140, it's 9k Dira, and then maybe you look at him next week if you've got the ability to get there. But yeah, Stewart, he's, if not the top 6, he might be the number 1 defender or number 2 behind Dawson. And Stewart plays the Crows next week at home. We know what he does at Geelong, and then he plays the Tigers the week after, and he does do a number on us. So, yeah, I'd be leaning to Stewart. No problems with the spelling of my name, cuz. And that, everybody goes to Switzerland version. Would you play Mitchell, Ryan, or Fergus Green on field this week? Can't loop them. Yeah, so Fergus Green's on there at the moment. I'm probably actually going to swap that around and go Mitchell. Fergus Green versus the Dogs. I probably don't like that as much. I probably like Mitchell against them, so I'm probably leaning towards him or Samson Ryan. No, I'm not going Samson Ryan because Soldo's back, so I think he plays more backup ruck. So actually, I might even do that now because otherwise I'll completely forget. So we're going to Fergus Green and we're going to chuck Mitchell back there. So let's do that. So that's the way to go. And knowing that I've gone that way, it'll probably be the opposite. But yeah, I'm a bit more comfortable with Mitchell, I guess, in his role than what I am going to be with, I guess, Fergus Green. The Dogs don't have the strongest back line, but I don't know. I feel like the Dogs, they're just starting to fire up, and that could be an absolute belting on the weekend. Your Tuk had no driver. Yes, very good. Vern Supercoach, do you think Laird will get up? I think it's really doubtful. So that's where I think you've just got to prepare around it. His break-even's 102. It's most likely just a one-weeker. I don't think he's going to miss second. Now, the only issue is they play Geelong next week. So there's a potential where he could miss that if they want to just go lambs to the slaughter down at Geelong. But I'm thinking it'll just be a one-weeker and that because he's pretty close as it is. Is it worth bringing Laird in this week, Tyler D? No, that's the hard thing. You bring him in and then what's your option if he doesn't play? I know his break-even's low. That I wouldn't break in. I know you'll want him, and what happens if he goes quite well? Pies without Pendles as well, so a few extra points floating around, but just the fact that he's carrying a calf, even if it is a light niggle and he does get up, I wouldn't probably lean towards it there. Maybe that's where you look the left field and you're talking about your sort of Sam Walsh's. What do we got? Hey, Swiz, love your stuff. Took to Sarong, LDU to Cogs, leaves 171,000 in the bank. Any chance, Justin, you can give me that 171,000 in the bank? Yeah, no, I like it, mate. That's good. Zach Clark, could you hold LDU? As I said, you could, definitely. If you want to save trades and you want to back him in, not a problem. I just don't like his break even. He's gonna bottom out like Brayshaw here. Like I feel like he's going down to 500 at least, and not that draw. It's not great. So if you've got an option, if you have other options you want to trade out, definitely, and you possibly could hold if you've got especially a good backup option this week, or if say you had Johnson and he went like 60, 70, well, yeah, you probably can get away with it. But I just don't like him sort of kind of go forward. Will Dacos or Oliver captain? Oliver 100%. Dacos, this is the week he gets tagged. No Pendles, he's playing midfield. He's much better in that halfback role where he can float around and do whatever he wants. I think Ben Keys is the perfect matchup for him. And you're ranked around 6,000. Great name, Django, for your team. Steve, hey, Swiz, thoughts on Marshall's VC? Yeah, Chris is big on this. Playing Teakle. Yeah, I don't mind it, especially if your loophole options are only tomorrow. Yeah, not a problem at all with that one. Why not take a chance? If Marshall goes bang, you're going to be, I think only 1% of the top 1,000 have him. As VC this week. So that's a nice one. I actually even thought about it myself, but having Bont and Oliver, I can't miss them. Patrick, thoughts on trading Turk to Laird? Excuse me. Or with the injury cloud, should I play it safe and get Merritt? Probably play it safe, get Merritt. I prefer to get Merritt second half of the year. Emily and I were talking about that last night. Merritt's usually really good for the run home. Bombers do have a tough draw coming up the next 3 weeks, and then it really opens up. So yes, but I still like Merritt. It might be a tough game this week. At least it's on the MCG. Cats midfield isn't what it used to be, so yeah, he should be pretty solid. TUFAC, the Ultimate Fitness Adventure Camp. Yes, Sid Cotter should if started. Voss is not boss, better than Doc. Well, yeah, let's not even talk about Doc in that situation. Let's see. I need your teams. I try to follow your team, but now top 7%. Might have to reread that one. Julie, thank you. Julie, I love your support. I know you watch a lot of my videos, so appreciate that. What are your other trades? Bar McKenna. That was Took. I was trying to think what the premium I traded out was. So McKenna, Took, and Davey was the other one. And yeah, so that's Cogs, Will Day, and Seamus Mitchell coming in. Lincoln has JVR or Green F6 this week. JVR 100%. That kid looked like Wayne Carey in the last quarter against the Tigers. It was awesome to watch. He was going to get subbed. And we were talking about it. We're sitting there. I'm there with my best mate, Dave. And he's a Melbourne boy. And he's like, yeah, JVR's getting subbed here. And I'm like, 100% he is. And then he took a real good mark, backed himself goal, and then it was just, he was calling for the ball. It could have been 70, 80 metres down the line, and you could just see he was singling, like, get it to me, I'm on here. So, fair, I'm backing him in against North Melbourne. If he's got that sort of confidence, hopefully, sometimes that can ride for a few weeks. So, yeah, I'd kind of back him in and get on him. Fergus Green's a tough matchup this week against the Doggies. Well, every week's going to be a tough matchup for the Hawks, but they know what they're doing. It's a long-term plan for them. Don't know about their captain bagging out their sponsors. I know some people don't like Tassie as a place to live. I like the place, but I can understand that. But yeah, when you're the captain, I probably wouldn't be making any reference to the people that sponsor you. But anyway, that's another point. Fremantle, will Wagner play this week? Now, the issue is Corey Wagner is on that extended bench. So there is a potential that he does. I think it's unlikely, Zach. But yeah, you can't. It's always hard with the sub. What are they going to do? I feel like I saw somewhere that Wagner wasn't on the plane, but I could be wrong with that. And that's sometimes players take separate flights too for whatever reason. So I feel like he might not have been, but yeah, there's no guarantee there. That's one to wait. Not until sort of final teams come out, we're going to know about that one. Mason, we have answered. LDU, yes, I think you do. Feel free to throw up the options you're looking out for LDU. So for fives, and it's hard to answer people's questions on who I should trade LDU to because I don't know how much cash you actually have in the bank. So if it's 560 straight, that probably limits your options. Like, you're not getting Jack Steele yet. Darcy Parish is there at 555. Maybe Mills, but I think that's still early. I know a couple of people have talked about Dangerfield in this group. So maybe it is to go either way. He's flying. You've got Sicily in there too. So if you want a kind of defender, so they're kind of your options as you're going down. I think Jack Sinclair too, so you could potentially look for a different position. If you do have some money in the bank, I know people looking at Zach Merritt, Josh Kelly for the Giants. The real one that no one's talking about and massive pod is Christian Petrarca. The guy is a jet. I know his Supercoach scoring is usually really inconsistent, but he's gone 97, 97, 119, 103, 110, 104. So he hasn't shot the lights out for an average of 105. But if that is really consistent basement scoring, and we know he has the ability to go large. He's gone a 189, a 160. So he at 173. So he has these scores where he can go through the roof. What are their next three games? North Melbourne, Gold Coast, Hawthorn. Petrarca has the ability to absolutely light that up. And if I probably wasn't going Canelio or Day, I know I was looking at Stewart. I know I was considering Walsh, but I know a couple of people were talking to, I think it was even Grimo, really all over this Petrarca pick. So if you want something really different, and we'll have a look at his ownership here too, because I think he has got no ownership about him at all. Actually, no, he does have a look. He's got 9.9, so still a pod. But yeah, I think there'll be some happy owners this week, so that might be a left field option for you. Daniel, Phillips, Cowan, Baker to Cogs, Canelio, Mitchell, or LDU, Phillips, Baker to Cogs, Day and Mitchell. The second one, mate. Cogs, Day and Mitchell. Watch it. The other one will probably work out better, but yeah, no, Cincotta, just wait till next week, mate. Julie, revenge on his side at the Dogs, delisted. Yeah, well, Green, that is a good point, Julie, about Green playing his old side, but at the same time, does that mean they might have some intel about how he plays as well? And do they, kind of stop his leading patterns and stuff? They might know some of that inside knowledge. So do I grab Cogs or Stewart? Already got Day, Seamus, haven't done the final trade out yet. Cogs, you're paying an extra 20k, 25 for him next week if you don't get him this week. Stewart, it could be anything but break even at 98. It's probably most likely 15-ish K. So if money's not really the problem, I feel like it's the sort of game that Stewart could go large. But it's nearly a much of a muchness. If you want to kind of save 10k, it's Canelio. The problem with Canelio, he scores all over the place. So it's a real toss of the coin. What do you need more? And I nearly think for you, Julie, have a look. What is your backup? So if you're talking about, I think you're saying like JVR versus Green. So you've got those guys. And if I have a look here, I'm trying to think if you've got an option, if you've got a way to loophole one of your forwards. So you've got JVR playing Monday night, Saturday night, and then Green's obviously playing on the Saturday afternoon. If you've got a loophole option in your forward line after that, aka maybe Davey doesn't get named as sub, and you can have one of them, you probably then get a look at the situation because you're talking about, oh no, unfortunately Canelio plays before that, so excuse that. I'm thinking Canelio is playing later. No, okay, that's not going to work. I like Stewart because I think you're going to need Stewart next week in particular, and then the week after that. So I think you can nearly wait on Canelio. Yeah, it's going to cost you more money to get him, but yeah, I like Stewart too much. To Matty Crow, where have you gone here? Trading McKenna, Took, and Michelini to the Goey, Sinclair, and Mitchells. Yeah, cool. Love it. Get on it. You've got 4 minutes. Let's go for the burger. Yes, good. Ultimate Fitness. Jared Wallace, thoughts on bringing in Oliver or Day for LDU? Get on Clary. As much as I love Day's value, this is the only problem. It depends on what's that extra money going to do. So Day is about 230k cheaper. If that money is going to considerably help you get another player in, like I've done and gone, okay, I'm going to get Day and Canelio. So I'm practically turning Took into that. It's that's 2 positions, and that's another rookie off. If you've got actually some decent rookies, and we've talked about your Samson Ryan, Radagalias, and you've missed some of this carnage, then you probably want Clary. We're all going to want Clary. He's the safer option, but it just depends what that extra 230k does for you. If it's going to do nothing for you, there's no other trades you can make this week, then go out and get the Clary man. Zach, LDU to Sarong. Yeah, no, I like that. Sarong looking way better than Brayshaw. And that's a pretty solid trade. Dasley, sorry. It's okay to hang on to LDU and trade him out next week. We've said yep, that could definitely work out because LDU is obviously not going to lose any cash this week. But at the same time, you'd want a good backup. Let's go through that. Zach Clark, should I get Johnson in even though he's already high priced? No, I wouldn't. Daniel Bird, out Baker, Wilmot, or McKenna. McKenna doesn't have as much money to make. I'd probably lean towards Baker, but they are playing the Hawks, so maybe keep Baker. Wilmot does have a little bit more cash to make, so it depends. If you want, I think McKenna scores more this week than what Wilmot does, but Wilmot's break even's less, so Wilmot will probably make 5 to 10k, hopefully. Best case scenario, probably goes more about 5k. McKenna doesn't make any money for you this week. So do you want the slightly more points on field? And that's kind of what I've been debating as well. So I feel like McKenna kind of goes a little bit better, but at the same time, they've been going very similar as well. So I have the 78k there. I could very easily do it and keep McKenna, but I'm backing Wilmot. Hopefully he can get a 60, at least boost up maybe another 8 to 9,000, get to 260. It's just a little bit of extra pocket money, and just hope McKenna doesn't go like 80 in that. But if he does, I lose 20 points, and McKenna makes the exact same money. Julie, Noah Long is my forward loophole due to the dud trade last week. Yep, I saw the silent vid, but don't know what. Thank you to who was that? Travis, who put out the silent vid. So I'm talking away, and for whatever reason, one of my connections did not work as it happens. So the footy is about to kick off in 1 minute. So we'll probably take one last question because I know everybody wants to get down and watch the game. And that, so it will be, Corey, great man. What do you think of Jones, Miller, and Wilmot to merit Day and Mitchell? Or do I trade McKenna instead of Wilmot for this? If you can afford it, as I said, mate, it's up to you. As I said, I think McKenna probably scores slightly more, but Wilmot makes slightly more cash this week. And I just want as I said, a little bit of extra cash. And I feel like McKenna hasn't been going as well in some of their wins. So that's why I've kept Wilmot, but I could have very easily kept McKenna. And maybe it probably comes down to how the teams come out tomorrow. It's probably something I'm going to watch and say, okay, these guys are coming out if I get the opportunity. And, or it might even be a case of talking to Ben and going, Benny, what's your gut feel? And then I'll probably go the opposite way. So it is nearly a much of a muchness, but Wilmot does have a little bit more cash to make than what McKenna does. So I'll probably go that way. Leo Sinclair. Sinclair's a good option. They've got a really good draw. I think coming up from even this week, but next week, I think they've got the North game. And then, it gets going from there. Yeah, so they've got North in the last game. Then they got the Crows, and then GWS. So some good games coming up for the Saints. He will be one of the options I'm trying to look at. Oh, yeah, and Axel Goulden to Cogs. I'm trying not to side swap Goulden. I thought it was just a one bad week there for the Swans. But I can understand why people are wanting to jump off if you don't have the option. You've just got to be aware that the Swans, yes, so this week they do have the Giants, so he could do well. They do play the Pies, which might not be the best matchup after that, but then they do play Freo and then North Melbourne. So we know Goulden's ability to he can rack up the big score. We saw it in the pre-season against Carlton, so I'm going to hold fat for now. I don't think there's that many great forward options, but if you don't have any other way to get to Cogs and you want Cogs we know is going to be that top 6, then there's no reason why you can't do that trade. And in the end, it's your team anyway, so nobody's stopping you from doing that. But I would, if there's a rookie you can get to, I would rather do that as the game has kicked off. So I'm going to jump off now and watch that. I hope everybody has a great Supercoach round and lock in those vice captain and captain options. So there's a few good ones floating around. Just be mindful, as we've said, if you own Laird, have a backup plan for him as emergency, and hopefully that fares